All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome. And my name is Rosemary. I'm filling in for Wendy today. Today we have with us Robin Lysne, and she's an author of 7 books on topics of health, healing, metaphysics, and poetry. Currently, she's launching an Ancestral Women series with 2 works of historical fiction to bring life to the courage and wisdom of her Norwegian ancestors. The Legend of Randine, Entering the Sisterhood, is her first novel. The Legend of Randine, The Lerdal Letters, the second in the series, was published in April of 2022 through Blue Bone Books, also known as BBB. Her poetry has been published widely from North American Review to Rattle to Sand, Canyon Review. Also, Robin was just telling me that she's just written a narrative nonfiction called Kisty's Royal Garden, actually written by her grandfather, and she has rewritten it. So that sounds like a very interesting book. She is a natural entrepreneur. In 2006, she founded a cooperative publishing house, Blue Bone Books, which publishes poetry and works by a variety of Northern California authors. BBB, last poetry release, is called Unearthed, a book of poems from the Emerald Street Poets. Her education began as an art student in Milwaukee at the University of Wisconsin, where she received her BFA, Bachelor of Fine Arts, in painting and drawing. Moving to Michigan, she later became an art curator at the Ella Sharp Museum in Jackson, Michigan, taught art through Michigan Art Centers, art history at Jackson Community College, and was an exhibiting artist. As an artist, she has shown widely from New York City to Santa Cruz, California. Her artwork explores cultural and spiritual themes embedded in nature, as well as abstractions inspired by human auras and energy healing. Welcome, Robin, and I will hand this over to you and to John.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, Robin, no, thanks for joining us again. And I'm always amazed by your multifaceted resume. Seems like you've got your hand or foot in a lot of different pools of activities. So I don't know how you manage it all, but we'll hear more about it today.
Yeah, thank you.
So just before we begin, because I think it's really intriguing, tell us about the book that you're rewriting that your grandfather did. I just find that very, very intriguing.
Oh, well, Kisty's Royal Garden is rewritten from my grandfather, Walter Herman Lysne. He was a chiropractor and an author, and also he hadn't published the book, however, and then he was also a visual artist. So he is very much I'm very much inherited from him because I do art, paintings, and writing. And the book focuses on my great-great-grandmother. She was a woman who came from Norway with her husband Heinrich, and they settled in Amherst Junction, Wisconsin. And so it begins with their wagon train movement up into Amherst, which took several months from Chicago. In those days, when you had an oxen wagon train, you could only go 10 miles a day. So if you can imagine, it's about 200 miles or 300 miles. So it took several weeks. And they ran into some Native American people who were in crisis, and she helped a lot of people. She took in a woman whose infant had just been born in the woods, and she was starving. And that was the first thing, where she took the child and nursed the child, and then took care of the woman and hid her in their wagon and kept moving her up into northern Wisconsin to keep her away from harm. So they became integrated with the Ho-Chunk people, or the Winnebago people, and were very involved. And so I wanted to tell that story because It's very different than Hollywood, which focuses on violence and more about the wars. They were integrated with the native people and very excited to learn about the land, and also didn't understand they were taking over their land. When they came over here, they were told that the land was free by the US government. So there's some stories about it that tell the root shock, kind of the roots of what happened with Kirsty and Heinrich and their children. So well, I'm very excited about the book. It's been purchased by the Daughters of Norway all over the country. They've taken the book on as a something to read, and it was a gift by the president to all of the lodges all over the country. So I've been to Norway and read it there and did a few other things. So I've been all over the place with it, and it's pretty exciting to see it developing. So yeah.
Let me then jump into the poetry part.
Yeah.
Was there anything in the book that sparked your imagination, that generated some poems for you?
I haven't had the chance to do that yet. I would say no. But I have a lot of other poems that talk about some of the Earth crisis. There's one I have here called The Strange, it's called Such a Strange Sky, and it had to do with the fires we had 3 years ago. If you'd like me to read that one, I could.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, go ahead. Why don't we just dive in? Because I think part of it is, the poetry will lead us to some other questions. And of course, we have Kathy, who's, you can only read 2 poems because Kathy has 40 questions. So see, Kathy, you've missed being on the show.
Okay. Such a strange sky. Yellow-orange with gray tinges, no wind, drape of gloom, canopy of pause, breath, or don't breathe the smoke. High up above us, toxic ash, plastic burned batteries, paint flakes rain down. Don't figure out anything. Stay inside, stay safe, or evacuate. Logic does not work right now. Toss all spreadsheets aside. I must go deep beyond appearances to the center of my spine, where essence moves in waves up and down. I immerse myself into this eternal now. Inhale life force in this vibrating center. Now exhale. No matter the strange orange sky, the fires, the virus, even though the world seems to have gone mad, even though we have taken for granted blue sky and fresh breeze, this moment and then next, where presence shines in one's core, connecting each one to all others, to the trees, stars, and this tomato orange sky.
Can't imagine
when the
being
fires,
even near that.
Yeah, when the fires were here at noon, out along the beach, the sky was orange, like the sun was setting, but the sun was way up in the sky, and everything was orange. There was no because of the fires that were so crazy in the CSV lightning fires, the lightning fires that happened up here. So, and I live up in the woods now, and a lot of the trees have brown, black bark because of that. So, yeah. So I have another poem about taking my birthday to Hawaii. And
taking your birthday to Hawaii?
Yes, I went to Hawaii this year for my birthday. I have a decade that moved me into the 70s. So I decided, so for my 70th birthday, I was going to take myself to Hawaii. So this is called Hawaiian Birthday Gift. Sun rays shine through rainbow, eucalyptus, blue sky background shows a pattern of growth spread out and away, makes a canopy of halako, breadfruit, banyan, arms and hands embracing all living creatures below. Each cannonball tree, sealing wax palms, come together over a trail where wind moves them in waves so high above us. A seed pod drops like a jewel in front of me, impending ivory nut palm sprout. This trail winds down the hill like a tunnel through all sorts of passion fruit vines to banana leaves and trees. I'm held by orchards, 3 cascading waterfalls, palm trees bursting down to ocean waves, singing around a pair of volcanic rock and ledges at the bottom of the trail. Walking back up the hill, I find myself floating among the palms and coconut trees, resting on a bench here and there, feeling the way to Kilauea, to view more variety of light, sparks, eruption, lava flow, complete renewal with such an amazing birthday gift.
Wow. That was a travelogue. Yeah, nice. How long were you there for?
I was there about a week and a half, and it was a great time because I hadn't been on vacation for over 5 years. I'd been working a lot in my private practice and also working with writing and working on these novels, and so I decided to just take myself away, take a break. So
Nice.
it was a great opportunity, and I'm glad I was able to do it. So yeah.
Great. So there's a lot of, just in these 2 poems, it may be this, I think this is probably part of your work. There's a lot of descriptions from nature or
Yeah.
from things that are happening in the climate or the situation. No, it's compelling. It's just a lot of colors, a lot of vibrancy. Of course, I don't think I'd want to be in a place where paint chips are falling from the sky, but
Yeah, well, thank goodness it hasn't happened since the 3 years since we've been outside of the fire, the CZU lightning fire. We had over 900 houses that burned down up here. And my friend who owns the property that I live on, her house burned down. And so she's rebuilt it. She lives there now. She's up in her 90s and she's a dear friend. And so I live in one of her cabins that didn't burn down. So it's been still a big event with the insurance companies and all of that. So, yeah. I have another poem here called View from the Pacific Rim. And this is focused, I'm in California, so I'm on the Monterey Bay. I can read this one if you like.
yeah, sure.
View from the Pacific Rim. It doesn't take long for sandpipers to reclaim the estuaries, or the river to find its true course again, or for humans to find a new, slower rhythm on lockdown. Now, rarely in our cars, we are not surrounded by a constant motor rumbling. Instead, we find solace, even harmony, and walk in the flow of our own rhythm. We align with a river deep within, one we have forgotten, a calm even in the midst of a viral storm. We hear the hum of the earth breathe along with our own breath. We take in more fresh salt air. In silence, crusts of sorrow and anger shed. Waves of harmony fill the empty space. Age does not matter. Judgments of others dissolve. As I watch the flow return to its natural course, listen to crow, sparrow, seagull. We walk 6 feet apart, align with our own current, and become quieter inside. So it's the possibility, it's what actually was happening during COVID. People would stay 6 feet apart and,
Yeah.
and everything. but actually nature, the beaches where there were lots of people, there were no people anymore. And the birds came in and reclaimed it immediately. So I thought that was, to me, that was the view from the Pacific Rim, looking at the shore in Capitola. And I really appreciated witnessing that. There were positive things that came out of the COVID epidemic. So
let me ask you this. Obviously, you spend a good deal of time out in nature, engaging in the world. Is that where part of your creative process originates? When you kind
well,
of go out there and immerse yourself and then something starts to generate?
yes, very, very truly. My inspiration comes from Mother Nature, and I call her Divine Mother. Mother Ocean, the Star Woman, the Star Sky. There's so much beauty and life force that moves through nature. When I'm really tired after working hard a week, I go down to the beach and lay on the beach and just get regenerated from the ocean and the waves and the sounds and the dolphins out there and so on. So I love nature, and it gives me it regenerates me like it does so many other people.
Yeah, for me, it's plugging into the poetry wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, once I do that, I'm like the, what do you call it, the ever ready bunny? Who's that bunny, that keeps running? Yeah, doesn't run down. So
I have another one that has, I have a bunch of them like that, but this one is called Waves of Us, and it kind of gives us it has a shape that's kind of
yeah, wow.
like a wave. It's called Waves of Us. Most winters end in February in California, but this one is not over yet. April 9th is the first day of the year where I lay in the sun on the beach with my shirt off. My turquoise bra looks enough like a swimsuit top. I raise my pant legs to feel the heat of the sun and watch the bay for big sea creatures, dolphins, whales, and seals surfing. As planes fly over us with birds flying under them, enjoying the waves, I remember Monterey Bay being the place where John Denver crashed his new airplane. I sing one of his songs, Country Roads, Take Me Home to a Place I Belong. West Virginia, Mountain Mama, take me home, country roads. And thank him for all he did. My country road is the beach, walking along waves to get a latte or mocha. A flock of pelicans fly out beyond the water. The pigeons land on the table where I sit. My hand crawls toward one. It jumps down to the cement. The same male pigeon is after a female dancing in front of her. She turns away again and again. He turns away and goes after another one. A little girl in pink shirt, blue shorts, long brownish hair, holds a leash of her puppy as she rolls across the sand while her parents, grandparents, and I watch her. She's loving the warm sand and beach, makes a pillow for herself after stepping in a hole another child made, pushes a pile of sand away, and loves to just lay around, feeling the heat, the comfort of the beach for the first time all winter. Other people near her play volleyball for the first time. She's just being herself, unrestricted, stretching out in the sand with her puppy, who comes and cuddles in this windy, sunny day.
So the winter kind of ends in February.
Yeah, most of the time here, but last year, no, it was cold all the way through April. Actually, that was the first warm day that we actually had, and the rest of it started warming up, but we really didn't have warm weather until May, like it happens in the Midwest or on the West Coast. So it was pretty cold all winter long last year. So
Yeah, I think we're going to have our first little mini snow tomorrow.
uh-huh.
It's already snowed in Stockbridge, Mass. I think Stockbridge will have another one. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's not going to be as snowy as they say, but I think it's going to be more frequent. And yeah, the weather went from 60 to 25 today.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
from yesterday. Yeah.
Well, we're having, 60-degree weather during the day, but then it's 50, 40, 42 at night, and it gets pretty cold. And when you're in a wood burning cabin that just has wood burning, it's pretty cold up here.
Mm, mm. So that's where you live full time?
I do now,
Yep.
yes.
Yeah.
I moved
Yeah.
from the ocean and I live up here now. So, yeah. I'm looking at a couple other here. Um, this is a one I recently wrote. It's called Wind Whales. If you want another one, or is there
Sure,
something?
sure. Yeah. Then we'll take a break and have a
Okay.
little Q&A or comments. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Wind whales. Invisible wind waves shape the beach. Whitecaps blow in from air tides that are so strong today. 3 teenage boys and a girl are jumping up and down with waves, sometimes overwhelming them. I watch to make sure they make it up out of the surf. A ruffle of whitecaps land down the sand from where I'm sitting on a small tidal hill next to the surf. Just down from my feet, beach waves crash and swirl. On the bay surface, a V of light ripples over white caps as they raise and create dark waves in sharp contrast to the light. It will be a new painting to make, I imagine. The wind pushes seagulls and pelicans up and down in spirals where they navigate as best they can through the sharp, hard gusts. Winds blow harder and harder, making new height of bigger and bigger waves that crash and foam roils sand. So much wind is enough. Then I'm needing to find some shelter in the woods again soon. But for now, it's such a change from mountain living, where trees break up the wind and gusts are in the tops of tower-high trees. As I walk down the beach again, gusts take my hair straight back as 3 pelicans fly up and down over curling ocean, just above the invisible wave of wind.
Nice. Nice. Very nice.
Thank you.
So I think, I don't know if we did this the last time you talked. So we take a little break in half time and let the audience ask some questions. I think that woman, Steffi, may have had to leave. She was on there, but she had to leave, I think.
Yeah.
So Kathy, any comments or questions?
Sure. I'm curious on the poem before this, the Waves of Us. I just really liked the way you showed so much freedom, first with yourself on this, first day, and then with the dolphins and whales and seals, and then you just kind of move on from one image of playfulness and freedom to another. The pelicans and pigeons, the little girl and the dog, and the volleyball players. And I just was curious if this was really all, in witnessing on that day, or if you're combining different images from different times for the purpose of the poem.
It happened to be a combination. So one was me down on another beach and then coming to a different beach a day or two later and then seeing this little girl. I totally relate to her because she's doing exactly what she wants with the sand, making it a pillow and playing with her dog and then diving in somebody's hole that they already made, I just loved watching her and seeing a child feel so much herself at such an early age. You know, having grown up in the Midwest in a very conservative area, we had rules that you had to follow. You know, you had religious rules from my family's Lutheran church, and you know, now I'm not into that anymore, and I'm out in other spiritual traditions, and have been for many years. And it's a very different to allow yourself to just be who you are, and so and not have to follow the rules of the past. So it was wonderful to see a small little 5-7-year-old girl doing that, you know, and her parents and grandparents just enjoying watching her do that. So
Absolutely, kudos to them, and I thought it was beautiful. So thank you. And I have a question. This might not be authorized, John, but about your about your nonfiction manuscript that you started with. I just wondered, since it was originally written by your grandfather, like what kinds of changes you made, like from his language to yours, or you know, if you incorporated his words as well. I'm just, you know, it's just something I'm curious about.
Well, Kisty's Royal Garden was originally just Kisty, and nobody understood who Kisty was. And then my grandfather had written this book in the 60s and 70s when I was growing up. And when I read it, he was very obsessed about the Civil War. He even took us to the East Coast at one point when I was a teenager, and took my sisters with me, and we looked at the place where his cousin, or it would have been his cousin, yes, died actually in the Civil War. His and one of the children of Kirsty and Heinrich. So my grandfather was obsessed with the Civil War, and he wrote, like, I don't know, over 150 pages just about the Civil War. And I felt like it was way too much. It was too political, and it was too focused on what was going on there in the whole country, rather than focused on Wisconsin and where the family was. Yeah. So the family that remained was in Wisconsin. And so I didn't put in a chapter about where we did have, I do talk about Ola, their son, going to the East Coast and fighting in the war, and certain areas during the Civil War, but they would get letters from him. And so that was a new thing I added. And then the emphasis on what it was like for a woman to take care of someone else's child that was a Native American child, and nursing it, and then taking care of this woman like she was her daughter. That was important. A shift that my grandpa wasn't. He was a man, and he wasn't capable of understanding what it would be like to be a woman dealing with that. And so I added a lot of personal information. My grandpa was a good writer. He wrote in kind of broad strokes, and in novels you need to get more detail, or in narrative writing you need to talk from the people that are living what's going on. So there was a lot of rewriting I had to do.
Fascinating. Thank you.
Yeah. He also had some words that were, I would say today we would call them racist. And I had to eliminate those, and certain words that, you know, in those days they weren't considered racist, but today they would be. And so I wanted to emphasize more the Native, about the Native people as equals to us, not what some people considered them to be, like animals, which was unfortunate.
Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah, really nice. Great. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, Robin, let me, I'm being a contrarian. So are there poems that you like to share that don't spring from nature? Kathy, I had to ask the question. Come on.
Sure.
Now, don't worry if you don't. I mean, if you don't, I don't want you to rummage through your cabin there. If you have something, no, I just figured, I'd like to hear a different approach, a different side of you in your writing.
Sure. Well, I have a lot of them actually. I had a whole bunch of them that were about dreams, and this one's called Dream Catcher. And I'll read this because one of the things I had for many years was a group that focused on dreams, and we would remember our dreams, and then we would write poetry from them. And that happened for maybe 5 years. My Emerald Street Poetry Group has been critiquing each other's work for 25 years. We meet every other week when we can, if everybody's home, or we have about 15 people, but we get about 7 or 8, sometimes 4 or 5, and we get together and critique each other's work. And there's some really good poets, so we help each other a lot. So this one's called Dream Catcher. There is a starman waiting in the sky. He'd like to come and meet us, but he thinks he'd blow our minds. And that's by David Bowie. A shaman tucks sheets under the chin of a beast, all teeth and brown fur. The beast is dying. Parts of us dying, other parts flourishing. Beads cover the shaman's face. Only a loincloth covers his soft skin. Other earth experiments, dinosaurs, 3-winged birds, lay around his feet. I pinch the cheek of the man bent over. He turns around indignant, his long hair covering his face. Who are you? I ask. He flips his black hair and beads back, and his face is full of constellations. I know he is a true shaman. Oh, I am so sorry, I say, kneeling in reverence. The beast used to belong to me and now is clearly leaving. He smiles his infinity smile and takes my hand. We lift bird-like to the tropics, where we land on an island. Crabs and fish in the sea swim in transparent turquoise waters. The sand is fine and pearly. Coconut tree shades one side of the island. This dream suits me. He has brought me to this sacred playground. Parts of us are dying, other parts flourishing. He shows me all his sea experiments, backwards walking crab, octopus, and barracuda swimming the seafloor. I embrace him. We make love, feeling stars and meteors shooting throughout my being. When I wake, I smell the tropical softness of the sea air. I feel the joy of fireworks pouring through me all day. Parts of us are dying, other parts flourishing.
Very nice. Very nice.
So that was from a dream that I had, and I was like, what? So I had to write it.
Yeah, don't interrupt the shaman, or do it and you'll go on an adventure. I guess that's
Right.
pretty cool. So just before you read another poem, just tell us about, it's Blue Bone Books.
Blue Bone Books, yeah.
Yeah, just tell us a little bit about that, because I'm often intrigued when poets, and there's someone else I know that, 16 Rivers, Dane Servine, I think is involved in that. And
Yeah.
I'm just always intrigued by, what was the impetus and how did it come together? Or is it just like all your kind of friends that were doing stuff and you said, hey, we should just start publishing? So
Yeah, well, I had my poetry group after I graduated from Mills College and got my MFA. I had been working on school for a couple of years and in university, and then I finished a doctorate degree in energy medicine. And I moved back to Santa Cruz County. I was up in northern part of the Bay Area. And so I had everybody at my house for a poetry reading and a party. We had a Christmas party. And instead, as we started talking, I said, some of us are published, but others of us are not. And we need to get books done. And I think we ought to have a cooperative poetry press. So we had there were 5 or 6 of us that were interested in that. There are 15 in our group. Dane is in my group. Dane
is he? Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah, he's one of our Emerald Street poets as well. And so we started talking about it, and then I kept holding meetings about it and saying, how many poems do you have? Do you have enough for a book? How many? We need at least 50 or 70 for a book. And so we started gathering the poems, and there were some people stepped forward more readily than the others. There's still two that haven't gotten the books done and haven't been able to get it to the point where it's a book. Because when you put a book together, there is often a theme that has to run with you through the whole book, or some kind of focus that the book is, especially poetry books, a kind of focus that the book is interesting, that makes it interesting. So we started putting books together, and 4 or 5 of us were published. And on my website, the Blue Bone Books, or robinlysne.com, Robin Lysne, I merged the two together because I've done more publishing of my own books in the last 5 years or so. But we've published a number of us, and then we've also published a new book that was unearthed about our group of poems, group of poets. So that's how it came about. And I still am publishing other people. I have a number of people that are not in our group that are focused on spirituality, or they're focused on books about other people that have done really good things in the world. So my publishing house is focused on helping other people get their books out there in the world. And
Nice.
I think it's important now, because the way the whole publishing world has changed, it's very, very difficult to get into the top 5 or the top 4 now that they've owned the other ones. So unless you have a very large reputation, or unless you have some kind of, you're a movie star, it's really difficult to get published. Unless you're famous, a president or a senator or something.
Yeah.
So what I've discovered is doing publishing for other people is great, because they get to do the book, and half of it is writing the book, the other half is promoting it. So the work for promoting is a lot of work. But for poetry, it's about readings. So that's what's exciting. So yeah.
Yeah, just another area. So I listened to NPR today. I drove back from the Boston area. I went down there yesterday for a meeting, and there was a whole 30 minutes on NPR today about the streaming business and how the streaming business is changing. And yeah, it was just really interesting how, all of a sudden, you're right, the publishing thing changes and then you can't get published. Or, streaming, they tried to fill every niche and produce as much content as they can. Now they've just tried to pull it all back and not even take shows away from the server. Yeah, it's just, no, the changes are, it's not a 20-degree change. It's like an 80%. It's going from, inviting someone in to saying, you know what, the door is closed, and then the door inside that's closed. So please don't come. Yeah.
Right. When I published my first book called Dancing Up the Moon many years ago, it wasn't a poetry book. It was focused on rituals and creating rituals. It was back in 96, I believe, that it was published, or 95. And that was my first book, and it was done by Canary Press. And when I did my second book, just 3 years later, Sacred Living, that book, half of the bookstores had closed all over the place where I had gone before to do book readings. And then about 5 or 10 years later, I did another book, and all of those bookstores were closed. And you had to go into centers, conference centers, or do a whole different thing, because now people were starting to self-publish. And that was a big deal to figure out a way to get your book out there. And now, of course, online, internet, and all of that does help, but it doesn't really give you the kind of influence that you would in a bookstore where you're doing a talk. So it's unfortunately changed a lot. And I would have to say that Amazon is part of the problem as well as part of the solution for selling things. So that's what created things differently. So it's unfortunate. So.
What? Oh, Jesus. Oh boy. All right.
Okay.
Getting medical reports from, we live in a 55 plus community, and our neighbor has been having some issues. So
yeah.
so just, that was my wife popping in and leaving.
Okay.
No, great. No, I think it's, listen, I think people now have to come together and just do stuff on their own.
Yes, and I think coordinating it with other people helps a lot too. That's the Danes in the publishing group in the Bay Area that focuses on helping each other get things going, and they have a kind of a list of places to teach or write poetry and speak in poetry and things like that. Things have changed a lot with COVID because a lot of the poetry readings shut down, and now they're starting to open up, but very slowly. So they're not as many as there used to be. We have a lot of authors in Santa Cruz, and so a lot of poets and a lot of really good writers. So it's a great area to be in, and a lot of the readings have shut down. So that's been hard for a lot of us, but anyway.
Yeah, I follow the Boston poetry scene in the Maine, and yeah, things have opened up. I don't have it in comparison, but there's a good amount of activity, so it's great. It's great that people out there and stuff. So, but go ahead, read some more poems. We're
Okay.
chit-chatting about too much.
Yeah. Okay. So I have one called Above the Circus. This is very different than some of the other ones. Above the Circus. Again, it's a dream poem. So adobe stairs spiral up or down, always a choice whether we stay hidden or ascend. Choice takes us deeper into fear caverns or vertically into Milky Way swirls. Once we reach the surface, a trapeze waits above the circus floor to take us up and up. No more caves, no more stairs, just a fool's launch, then flip spin through flood-lit, star-filled air. So that's the poem about evolution, moving through growth, personal growth.
So is there a dream phase for you, or does it happen on a pretty regular basis that the dreams come to you and they take another form?
Well, writing a poem from a dream, it's interesting. It can just be like I don't have the dream on that one. Writing the dream, what we've started learning to do is write the dream down, just in the words, whatever the words are.
Yeah.
And then take the essence of the words and put that into a poem. And so this was a dream that I had about being in a circus and seeing the caves, and then flipping and enjoying the athletics of the wires, and feeling like, oh, I don't have to worry about falling. I can just keep moving up. And so then that's about expanding your soul's energy, your movement into a higher plane and things like that. So that's what that's really about. So
nice.
Yeah, so I have a couple others here. Let's see. This one is called Invisible Friends. I'm, part of what I do professionally is I'm a seer. I see energies. If I tune into them with people, individuals, I can perceive people's energy fields and blockages, and I help clear the blockages and things. So, and I also help people deal with spirit guides. So these are called Invisible Friends. My eyes are closed as I go in. The hypnotherapist takes me back and back. A red plastic rim of playpen appears. I remember the taste of it. Pine rails and square bars, a red rubber pad. I stand on over a Masonic floor. I'm inside this cage, wearing my footy pajamas. It is noon. Mom had not changed me out of them yet. There was no one there for me. That is when she starts screaming, pounding the counter, slamming pans around, stabbing cutting boards with long knives until my father walks in for lunch. I can't see. How am I supposed to take care of anyone? She screams. There was no one there for me. She was 7 months pregnant, coping with his relatives who overstayed their welcome when they got the flu, 2 flights of stairs to wash sheets in the basement, 3 of her girls in school, and I in the den to witness the whole thing as she melts down in the adjunct kitchen. I knew then there was no one there for me. Dad calls a babysitter, takes her to the hospital, and sends her relatives back to Chicago. The red rim of the playpen becomes a barrier from her rage. 2 months later, my little sister comes home with Mom, colicky and screaming. All focus on the newborn. I knew there was no one there for me. That was then. This is now. The adult me lifts the child out of her playpen. I've got you. I'm here for you. I will never leave you, I say, as our invisible friends stand all around smiling. Today, years later, my little child lay safely on my chest. I am here for you, dear heart, as I breathe myself awake.
How many sisters do you have?
I have 4. The oldest one is passed. She died about 10 or 15 years ago. So, but the rest of us are still very much alive.
5 girls?
Yeah, there are 5 of us, 5 girls all
Woo.
together. I was 4 out of 5.
You're 4 out of 5? Wow.
Yeah,
5 girls. Wow.
yeah. And what that poem really does is it goes into my personal history, but it also focuses on what needs to change in people in order to feel better about themselves and also align with their love. So we are all, we all have a loving aspect of our being that can hold the parts of ourselves that were injured when we were children. And that was an injury that was just something I didn't come into my consciousness until maybe 10 years ago. So then giving that understanding and like, oh, okay, that's why I had this kind of relationship with my mom. And we had a good relationship, but there was always a feeling of not being supported by her emotionally. She was supportive in every other way she could be, but it's interesting to see that because that's what people need to do to help and heal themselves. So that's the work I do.
Yeah, I was one of 4 boys.
Oh,
So
you
when
were?
each new boy came along, the previous boys were, I'm not going to say ignored, but the entire focus was on the new child.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
there were other kids there, but it's like, okay, fend for yourself. I'm focusing, and listen, it could be, temperament or capacity to cope or to manage. At some point, I'm sure your mom, 4 girls, and now number 5, it's like,
Well, she was
yeah,
overwhelmed. I mean, she was just overwhelmed. And, she had a challenging childhood herself. And so she was trying to make it a perfect childhood for all of us.
yeah,
And she was just overwhelmed. I mean, when my sister had her 3rd child, she said, "Oh, it's like having 5," because suddenly it's chaos in the house all the time. So, that was interesting information. And I also understood my mom in that way. So it
that's
had to
nice.
be difficult, really difficult.
Yeah, very, very nice. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, yeah.
So we got about 9 more minutes. Let me have Kathy, if Kathy has any more questions. sometimes I just run to the end of the clock here and forget about doing other stuff. So Kathy, go ahead.
Well, I just want to say I was absolutely fascinated with that poem, and your work sounds incredibly interesting. And I mean, I'd love to hear another poem that's related to that, but I also wondered if you integrate your artwork and your poetry in any way. Do you use one to inspire the other, or do you combine them in some way at all?
Yes, yes, I do. I often go out and write a poem, and sometimes there'll be things that I can't write about, but I'll draw a picture of, and then drawing the picture helps me to kind of then get to the essence of what I could write about that would have something to do with that. I have a poem that I'm looking through my stack here that has to do, let's see. I think this is it. It's called Capturing the Monterey Bay. Late afternoon, and the Gobelin Range is carved out of the sky. Dark blue torn paper collage across a cloudless tissue paper horizon. Yesterday, Monterey was whitewashed. Today, bay waters ruffle sails offshore. Wind currents make palette knives dip. A patch of fertile valley disappears as fog rolls and smooth. A thick layer of cotton mist billows below torn paper mountains. Tonight, as storm clouds hide the entire Monterey Peninsula, I inhale rain and paint splash from a hurricane palette. So that's a poem about seeing this painting of the landscape in the Monterey Bay, which it changes all the time. And seeing it like, oh, I could see that I could make this by tear the paper of the mountains off, So it gets to be excited. So I wrote this poem, and I've never done the painting yet, but I may eventually.
That's great. I loved all the art words that came up in it.
Yeah, that would be pretty fun if you could, for me, tear a piece out of the sky and put it in a little box for yourself. There are some things that made me think about, what's possible in the next, I don't know, the next world or another dimension, or I don't know. So
yeah.
Interesting, very
Well,
interesting.
Being starting as an artist and doing paintings and still doing that, it gives me there's something different about painting from writing. Painting is nonverbal, it's visual. But then once you get the visual down, or you have an understanding of the visual, you can pull words out of it and make a poem. But it doesn't always translate. You can't always translate it from one to the other. So
I like that, pull words out of a painting to become a poem. I like that.
Thank you. Yeah. I have another one. Let's see. This is about aging. It's called Aging of Us. It's a little longer, but hopefully it'll be okay. Aging of Us. Sitting among the redwoods, their roots solidly in the earth, sun lighting up the stripes of bark all the way to the top. It calls me to my own roots, my feet on the deck, feeling the breeze, even though the heat is strong today. I reflect on my return from a book tour, of visiting Midwest relations and old friends. One friend's health very fragile, a cold infection, and another cut on her leg, unable to heal. Her shakiness was prevalent unless she sat down exhausted. She insisted on making lunch at her house for me. Both of us wore masks. Her nervousness about her health was prevalent, and how she didn't want to give me her cold. There was undercurrent of her fear of fatality. This might have been the last time I see her. My cousin's wife, so strong in her spirit and determined to live no matter what, yet her body so arthritic, a crooked neck so fragile if she fell she would die, legs barely able to move without her strong efforts. She walks 5 miles a day regardless. It seems so sad as aging moves us into a time where our friends are leaving. My sister had a hard time remembering what she needs to say. My brother-in-law had a heart attack. I pushed out of my brain and they reminded me about it. As his love for my sister is so clear and obvious, what to do with aging, I wonder. In my hometown of Rockford, Illinois, where my father and mother lived, their whole lives, and all 5 of us grew up, no one knows them anymore. 9 years after my father's passing, 27 years after my mom's, their friends are all gone, and all my sisters have moved away. Before a workshop I offered there, I walked around to see their monument plaque with bursts of orange, yellow, maroon hydrangeas. And I watched 2 swans swim in the Sinisippi Pond that has always been there since my childhood. No matter where I went in Rockford as a child, everyone knew my parents. The redwood trees around my deck share their reality, some young, others old. The redwoods leave a circle of younger trees around its huge old stump with no children. My writing and art is what I leave behind. It's facing our aging, which isn't easy.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, I think health management is just about a full-time job. Not a full-time job, but it's a job. I've got different prescriptions. I've got different, I think, yeah, I have a lot of things I have to do and I'm doing stuff tomorrow. So yeah, that's just the nature of it. But part of it is I tell people if you can maintain your health, improving, I don't think is always possible, but if you can maintain,
Yeah.
You're doing really great.
Yeah. Well, one of the things my mom said was aging takes a hero to move on.
Yeah, yeah.
And I agree with her because, she died in her 70s. Well, I'm in my 70s now, but that was amazing that we thought she was so young when she died. And my father was in his 90s, like 99 before he passed. So
Wow, 99.
yeah, yeah. And he was doing really well. He was totally straight on. He got what he was doing and what was going on. And his body was failing, but the rest of it wasn't. So he was very sharp. So that's good to know.
No, that's
Yeah.
great. That's good news for you. Family
Yeah.
longevity is a good thing to have.
Yeah.
Uh listen, we have to close out our hour. And
Okay.
no, I appreciate you being on again. I think I love the different, the dream stuff, the whole thing is this different angles. I mean, and Kathy, once again, it's not that everyone has just, one lane they swim in, but it's nice to hear things from a different perspective because, the dream stuff, the nature stuff, they're probably connected somewhere up in the heavens.
Yes.
You just can't see them,
Yeah.
So very, very nice. Thank you very much. And we
Thank
will
you,
send you
John.
the recording soon. And
Great. Great.
yeah, very good. Kathy,
Yeah.
glad to see you come back. And
Thank you.
Rosemary,
Pleasure.
yeah, Rosemary, we can stop the recording.
All right. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh no, it's great. Absolutely great. I don't know, maybe Rosemary walked away here. I don't know. Let's see. I don't know if I can. Let's see. Oh, okay. I can't stop. Well, this will be going, the recording will be going on for like 12 years, Kathy. So we'll,
All right.
yeah, Robin, if you could start to do some tap dancing or maybe a few jokes, we could. No. Oh man, I should.
All
Hold
right.
on, I'll get.
Well,
Yeah,
Thank
she's
you.
filling in. She probably doesn't know. Let me
okay.
just.
Enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, have a great time, and I appreciate being here. And
Yeah, no, great. No, thank you again. It's so great just to, every show is fantastic. So really it's a gift for me just to, listen to everybody's work. So thank you again. And
absolutely.
now I'm going to see if I can find Rosemary so we don't have a 17-hour recording.
Okay.
Yeah, Kathy, it's a new thing now. It's not a 1 hour show. It's a whole day's excursion. Yeah,
Yes.
that's the new thing. Yeah. All
All
right.
right.
Care,
I'm
everybody.
gonna,
Yeah.
Take
all
care.
right. Take care.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, you can stop the recording now. All good. Great. And I'm going to send you some bios in a few minutes. You. Bye. All right.